There is a region known locally as Maut Ghati, the Valley of Death. When humans enter spaces governed by ancient, lethal environments, they often bring a dangerous sense of arrogance with them. They assume modern survival tactics will protect them against threats that operate outside the bounds of physics and reason. We can see this dynamic in a group of 3 modern trekkers. Rahul is the group's anchor, a rigid believer in logical problem-solving. Vikram relies on mockery to deflect tension, while Sneha remains highly sensitive to her environment. They stand at the threshold of the trees, equipped with GPS and high-end gear, confident in their superiority over the landscape. But an environment like this operates on a principle we can call the vacuum. The jungle rarely mounts a frontal assault the moment you cross its borders. Instead, it observes. It waits in the negative space, allowing its victims to lean into their arrogance until they are too deep to turn back. The first signs of friction hit the most perceptive targets. Sneha reports a sudden heaviness in the air, a visceral sense of being watched from the canopy. Rahul immediately categorizes this data as localized superstition, dismissing her physical symptoms as mere anxiety. This heavy reliance on modern equipment and rational thought acts as a psychological blinder. By rationalizing away the warning signs, the group willingly marches deeper into the trap, unaware that their logic is about to be systematically dismantled. Once the sun drops, the equation changes. Active trekking requires movement and focus, but resting at a nighttime campsite forces the group to remain stationary. They are tired, surrounded by darkness, and vulnerable. This is when the first entity, known as the hunger or bhooki, makes its move. It specifically targets Vikram. While the others rest, Vikram carelessly consumes snacks, filling the quiet air with the noise of his chewing. The jungle isolates this specific behavior and mirrors it back at him in a terrifying form. Out of the pure blackness beyond the campfire, a skeletal hand slashing downward intercepts him, instantly crushing Vikram's hand. The entity tears away a finger, while seizing the food in a single high-speed motion before disappearing back into the void. The loss of a limb is traumatic, but the total collapse of their perceived safety is what triggers the unthinking panic response. In a fraction of a second, the security provided by the campfire vanishes. They abandon their gear and flee blindly into the brush. Even in a state of terror, Rahul tries to apply logic. He calculates that continuous forward momentum is their best chance to outpace the threat and break line of sight. The second entity, the Weaver, neutralizes that exact strategy. Rahul's logical retreat halts abruptly as he finds his legs bound by thick, undulating ropes of human hair extending from the branches above. These first 2 attacks operate with clinical precision. The hunger eliminates their ability to rest safely, and the Weaver eliminates their ability to run. The jungle has stripped away their physical defenses, leaving them exhausted, stationary, and entirely vulnerable to a psychological assault. The group is now physically compromised, exhausted, and separated in the pitch black. This network diagram shows Sneha as the central node, heavily reliant on empathy and trust. To break the group, the mimic severs these lines. It hijacks the network, weaponizing her empathy with a perfectly synthesized version of Rahul's voice to lure her into a trap. She steps toward the shadow she assumes is Rahul. The figure stands perfectly still for a second before the featureless face suddenly fractures down the middle, emitting a deafening, unnatural scream. The real Rahul and Vikram arrive just as the trap springs. They grab Sneha, physically dragging her backward away from the cave and forcing her to run. The mimic had ample time to kill Sneha in the dark, but assassination wasn't the objective. By wearing Rahul's voice, the entity successfully destroys the foundational trust between the survivors. Every time one of them calls out in the dark, they will now do so with hesitation and fear. Daybreak approaches and the tree line finally breaks. The 3 survivors stumble across the physical boundary of the jungle, gasping for air, operating under the assumption that they have outrun the nightmare. When they look back, the three entities, the hunger, the weaver, and the mimic, are standing at the exact edge of the forest. They are motionless, silently watching the group leave. Cold, precise tone. Vikram looks down at his arm. Beneath his healing skin, a single black strand of hair from the weaver is actively slithering through his flesh. The shadows remain stationary at the tree line because the chase is no longer necessary. The objective was completed the moment the infection entered the host. You can map your way out of the trees and leave the physical coordinates of a dangerous valley. But once an environment injects its infection directly into your psychology and your bloodstream, the geography doesn't matter. The jungle has found a permanent home.